Hi, everyone. Hi, everybody who's starting to arrive. Welcome. Thanks so much for joining us today. We'll just wait a couple of minutes for everyone to get settled. So please, while we're gathering folks together, you'll notice there are interpreters on the screen. So we're offering interpretation in French, Spanish, Portuguese, um, and English, of course. And so if you have not done the interpretation on Zoom before, depending on your setup, click the menu button that says More on the bottom of your screen. Choose the circle that also kind of looks like a globe and pick your preferred language. That will make it a lot easier for you to hear. So welcome to everyone who's joining, whether it's morning, afternoon, evening, late at night. Thank you so much for taking an interest in this global impact study launched by GFC 2 years ago. And just settle in. We'll get started very soon. Yeah, thanks, Katie, for posting the reminder. For those of you just joining now, please choose your preferred interpretation language. The bottom of your screen, you should see a More menu button, and you can go ahead and click in the globe sphere looking item. And we have interpretation available in uh, French, Spanish, and Portuguese, and English, of course. And we'll just wait another minute or so for folks to arrive. Yeah, and if you'd like to drop in the chat where you're joining from and who you are and what organization you represent, please do so. Love to see friends from Sierra Leone and Zambia. Welcome to the webinar. Really looking forward to sharing these findings with you all. Welcome from India. In Thailand. Great. Truly global participation in this webinar. Love to see it. I'm personally joining from Germantown, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C., from the UK, from Nepal, Kenya, London, Honduras, Mexico, Kenya, Bangladesh. Welcome, Greg. Greg, GFC board member. Thanks for joining. A friend from Global Giving, my old organization from Louisville, Kentucky. Ukraine, Bangladesh. Welcome. And Atlanta, Georgia, from CDC Foundation. Welcome. Yeah. All right, so I think we can sort of get going. So today I'm extremely excited. Because 2 years ago we launched this very ambitious, groundbreaking study to help us understand our impact in the world. We completed the work earlier this year, and since then we've been sense making, with the team and with our partners, to help us understand if what we do at GFC really matters in the ways that we think it does. And so just for context, at Global Fund for Children, we practice trust-based philanthropy. And this means we work very closely with our grantee partners as really genuine collaborators. We have, of course, offer flexible funding over multiple years, and we pair that with highly tailored capacity support that really relies on a high degree of trust, mutual trust between GFC and our grantee partners around the world, so that we can truly work together to address organizational challenges and help organizations pursue their aspirations. So we created this study in an effort to understand the impact of our approach. Number one, on the partner organizations we support around the world, but by extension in the communities that they serve. I also really hope that this study contributes to a growing body of evidence that helps other grant makers feel confident that these approaches are effective, and also helps grant seekers advocate for these approaches with their funders. And so whether you think about this constellation of ideas that we think of as trust-based philanthropy, or you could think about it as more decolonized approaches or power shifting. Many of us in the sector have felt a really strong moral kind of ideological imperative to work in this way. And we've intuited that this approach is effective and have gotten great feedback from our partners over the years. But what does it really look like? Does it really work as well as we think it does and we hear it does? And we're also, with this study, trying to demonstrate that monitoring and evaluation does not have to be extractive, that it can actually be generative and developmental for all involved. And of course, as Global Fund for Children, a real priority was to center young people in all of the process, from design to implementation. And so over a third of the interviews and creative research activities were with young people that our partners work with around the world. And we're very, very happy to have partnered with Ecarus, a research organization based in the UK that understood from the very beginning our wild aspiration to be so innovative and participatory in our approach. So we co-designed the study and decided to pilot this peer participatory action research method that you'll hear more about from Selina. So today we'll share our findings and discuss some of the questions and challenges the findings raise. And we'll hear from our panel of experts, who are folks who were in the design and implementation of the research. So a little bit more housekeeping. Please use the chat to send in questions. And we'll dedicate the second portion of the meeting to addressing as many of those as we can with the panel. And again, we have translation, so please choose your language using the menu on the bottom of your screen. And now I'm very, very pleased to turn it over to Selina, who will present the findings from the study. By the way, I forgot to introduce myself. I'm John Hecklinger. I'm the co-CEO of Global Fund for Children. Welcome.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, John, for the introduction. So I am Selina. I was one of the lead researchers on this study, and I would like to provide you an overview and a brief summary of what we found during our study. So I hope you can see my screen. Does it all, it's moving? Okay, great. So an overview of our study. We were a large team of 38 researchers on this study, which consisted of researchers from a professional research organization, Ecarus, and also we trained people from GFC's partner organizations to be our co-researchers on this study. The study lasted 15 months, and we researched 49 partner organizations from 27 countries around the world. We conducted 243 interviews with staff members from partner organizations, children, young people, and community members where partner organizations carry out their work. And in addition to interviews, we also conducted 134 creative research exercises. So these were child-friendly and mostly non-verbal research activities, such as poems or photos, videos, drawings, maps, movement games, journals, and all of these helped us gather stories and hear from the people we conducted the research with. So to introduce you to the aims of the study. So what did we want to do? What did we want to find out? We wanted to investigate what is the impact of GFC's funding model on partner organizations? So GFC's philanthropic model is based on establishing trusting relationships with partners, providing flexible and unrestricted funding, and also providing non-financial support. So we wanted to understand, what is the impact of this package on partner organizations? And then our second aim was to look at, well, as a result of the funding and support that GFC provides partners, what is GFC's impact on children and communities? So since GFC is supporting partners, what are these partners then? What is the effect that they're creating in communities? So what is GFC's indirect effect in communities? And here are the answers of what we found to these questions. So firstly, about GFC's trusting relationship. Before I explain the impacts that we found, I want to just define and clarify what we found the trusting relationship is. So we identified that GFC's trusting relationship is based around GFC staff members who are caring and have close relationships with partners, where they respect the expertise of partners. And partners told us that they feel they can easily reach out and contact GFC staff via phone or email. And they felt that they could speak openly, safely, and in a non-judgmental way. And this comprised the trusting relationship. And the effect of this was that the trusting relationship allowed partners to stay true to their own values, priorities, and visions. They were able to make their own decisions about their organizations, and they shared a lot of stories about this. Another finding was that partners considered GFC as colleagues in partnership, as a united front, as teammates. And we heard a few times an expression such as, GFC are an extension of our organization. Partners also shared that they were able to gain confidence and security to grow at their own pace. So a lot of GFC's partners are grassroots and small organizations. And these partners shared that through a trusting relationship, they could grow through grassroots activism at their own pace. We also found that partners were shifting towards more trust-based and collaborative ways of working. So through the trust experienced by GFC, they modeled this with their staff members and also with their communities. Partners shared that they experienced personal and professional well-being through having a close relationship. They felt more at ease and more comfortable. And a trusting relationship helped them take risks and grow and experiment. The next area we investigated was the impact of flexible and unrestricted funding. So partners described or defined this as unrestricted money that they could spend as they needed. And this was accompanied by GFC's light monitoring and limited paperwork and limited bureaucracy. So the impact of this flexible funding approach was that it allowed partners to listen and respond to community needs, so they could be needs-based and community-led rather than donor-led. The flexible funding allowed them to invest and improve in internal processes in the ways that they thought would be helpful, by hiring specialized consultants or purchasing equipment or training their staff, so investing in trainings. They were able to use the funding to sustain their organization's activities. So because of the flexibility, they could utilize this at critical moments to sustain the organization and different interventions. They were also the flexible funding also allowed them to expand their services and increase capacity. So, for example, opening their doors to more people, increasing the frequency and amount of activities. They were able to adapt to challenges or changing circumstances, such as during COVID-19 or during wars or emergencies or unexpected situations. The flexible funding also helped improve the motivation, well-being, and confidence of staff. And this was linked to being able to compensate and remunerate staff on time. We also heard from partners that they could carry out holistic, long-term, and uninterrupted work with their communities. And this was because as opposed to rigid and very limited funding, which is maybe limited to certain interventions, the flexibility allowed them to ensure uninterrupted services to people. And lastly, partners shared that the flexible funding allowed them to take risks, to experiment, to innovate, and to learn, and therefore grow and gain recognition. Just take a sip of water. Okay, and the third area of GFC's support was the non-financial support. So this is GFC's support beyond the check. And we identified certain different offerings and services that GFC provides in this capacity. One of them is, for example, networking support, introducing partners to each other. Another example is safeguarding support, or identifying the strengths and weaknesses of organizations and providing tailored guidance or trainings according to this. Learning and evaluation support, fundraising support, such as connecting partners to other donors or proofreading proposals, or helping them set up local fundraising structures, or trainings, or also non-financial support included well-being support. So in terms of the impact of this, we found that it allowed partners to establish peer networks and learn from each other. So the networking connections helped partners get inspired, see different ways of working, establish self-supporting structures. We heard very loudly that one of the main benefits of GFC's non-financial support was to experience that they experienced organizational development and organizational strengthening. And this was, as mentioned, through help to identify weaknesses and strengths and assets and build on this or improve where needed. Partners shared that they gained visibility and access to further funding through the fundraising support and connection to other donors and platforms. Partners also developed effective safeguarding practices. This was relevant for those who didn't have any practices in place, but also those who had policies. They were able to strengthen them and improve their protection and care. Partners shared with us that they had experienced mindset shifts about power, which was an interesting finding. They explained that they had shifted attitudes in thinking about their staff members, about communities, and even about donors. Some people shared that previously they saw donors as untouchable or saviors, but through some trainings and exercises with GFC, they began to see their networks as more horizontal and participatory, so looking at things in a more critical way. We found that staff at organizations improved their skills. There were many skills mentioned. Some of them were fundraising skills, facilitation skills, social media skills, computing or accounting, public speaking. We found that partners experienced better well-being through greater emphasis on well-being policies and mental health. And lastly, through the learning and evaluation support that GFC provided, partners shared that they improved the quality of their programs and their accountability to communities. So I've shared now really quickly the impacts of GFC's support model on partners. But now I'd like to share how all of this that happened for partners then created impacts for children and communities. I'll begin by talking about individual level impacts in communities. So these were kind of personal stories, person level stories that young people and children in communities that we interviewed and did exercises with, that they told to us through their stories. So young people shared that they improved their prospects and life paths, their careers, their education. There was this frequent slogan or refrain of like, I turned my life around through the organization's activities. We also heard that people improved their confidence, they became less shy, they came out of their shell. Young people and adults in communities shared that they had increased their awareness of rights and of important societal topics in their communities. There were stories of improved leadership skills through the responsibilities and decision-making opportunities that partners provided. Children especially reported that they felt included and safe in organizations around the world. They described organizations like their families, they described friendships. And we also found improved physical and mental health through better nutrition and sports and just in general being cared and supported. People shared that they had improved skills in public speaking, literacy, independence, and children, especially boys, mentioned that they were better able to regulate emotions, and parents commented that this helped them have better relationships at home, feel calmer. And lastly, we found that children expressed feeling joyful and motivated and excited to be in schools or in partner spaces. So these were all our findings around the world at an individual level. And now I want to share some broader systemic patterns that we observed. So we found that through partner organization activities, the kind of largest pattern or trend was improved access to quality education. And this was also retention and staying in quality education, including for people from disadvantaged communities that partners targeted their activities towards. We also observed shifted attitudes around harmful practices, such as child marriage or female genital cutting, and also shifted attitudes around limiting gender roles. And this was achieved through community mobilization workshops or specific interventions. And we found examples of community-led change-making. So this was evidence of people in communities taking ownership to address systemic issues in their neighborhoods or communities. And they were generally inspired by partner organizations' activities or as a result of learning about their rights and embracing that. Another trend was families prioritizing education, knowing how to support their children. And this was through parent education workshops and also observing the impact of quality education initiatives in their communities. And lastly, we found a trend of reduced violence in communities. And this was reduced gender-based violence and also due to people being able to spot harmful behavior and partners helping address violence at its root. So as a last kind of overview of some patterns that we saw, we identified that the components of GFC's model are very interlinked. So the trusting relationship is an integral part of the flexible funding, and this is complemented with non-financial support. So they go hand in hand to create impacts. We also observed that larger funding amounts of such as $100,000 had a large impact on partner organizational growth and the skills and confidence of staff. And we observed that large funding amounts together with long funding periods also helped partner growth and the confidence and skills of staff, but also created strong impacts for the sustainability of partners, helping them having strengthened structures and establishing self-sustaining structures and having broader networks, having more funding, and being able to benefit from a longer relationship and longer non-financial support from GFC created this, as well as then leading to community-led change making. So that was a really big summary whirlwind tour of a 100-page report. And that's all available right now on GFC's website that you can find through this QR link. So that, of course, if you want to read the full report, it's there. It's long, but if you want to read summaries, there is a 5-minute, really short summary with overviews, and then a longer detailed summary, which is about 15 minutes to read with details and examples. But of course, if you want to dive into the methodology and the case studies, the full report is there. So thank you so much for listening.
All right, thanks, Selina, for that overview. It's a real challenge to kind of distill such a huge variety of activities in so many different places into these findings. So appreciate that that nice overview, and would encourage all of you to look at the 3 options: the small, medium, and large size sort of summaries we have of the findings on our website. So thanks again, Selina, and now let's bring in the panel. So Tyas, Lilli, and Hariom, welcome. First, I'd just love to give you the chance to introduce yourselves. So Tyas, maybe start with you.
Thank you, John. Hi, everyone. My name is Tyas, and I'm the Research and Learning Manager here at GFC. I work as part of the Learning and Evaluation team, and for GIS specifically, I help oversee and manage the study.
Yeah, Tyas had an enormous job for an extended period of time, orchestrating all of the moving parts around the study. So thanks for your great work on this. Lilli, how about you? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in the study.
Great, thank you very much, John. It's a real joy to be here. I am Lilli. I worked as the research director on this project with the incredible team of 38 researchers, as Selina mentioned. And it was a fascinating study to be part of, and very, very excited to be talking about the findings and implications of those now. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lilli. I appreciated from the very beginning your thought partnership on this, and your appetite for innovation and to try some new things in new ways. Hariom, tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in the study.
Thank you, John, and hi everyone. Excited to be here. I am Hariom Agarwal. I am from an organization called Pro Sport Development in India, and we are a GFC partner. I was involved in the study as a co-researcher, so I was the part of the 38 researcher team, and I had attended a training by Chorus and visited a couple of GFC partners to collect the data. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm definitely going to want to hear more, and I'm sure folks are curious about your experience as a researcher and also as sort of a subject of the research. But Tyas, why don't I start with a question for you? So the findings are obviously very promising, always raise a lot more questions that I hope we get a chance to investigate. But so yeah, sure, it's very promising that there's something about this approach that works. But what surprised you about the how? And is there anything that kind of challenged your assumptions?
Yeah, thank you so much, John. I totally agree with you. I feel like more compelled with the funding model that we have here at GFC. I think For me, I would say there are like two things that surprised me the most, how our model actually works in practice. Like first and foremost, I think the cascading effect of trust. And because like we always believe here at GFC, the power of trust-based philanthropy and how our relationship with our partners. And it surprised to me to see how the GIS revealed that the trust also means that our partners consider us as their teammates who tackle the work problems together. And it actually doesn't stop there because the GIS also showed that it ripples outward. So when our partners experience trust and respect from us, they not only deliver better programs, but they actually start modeling those similar dynamics with their own staff and then with the communities that they work with, which is, I think this is like far beyond our reach here at GFC. And also this kind of like challenged my assumption because previously I thought this was like primarily about how our partners could do with our funding. But it was also validated and the GIS in a way that our flexible funding has enabled partners to listen and respond to their communities and adapt the challenges that arise. And then the second surprise is just really understanding how everything interconnected. The three areas that are part of the investigation really work hand in hand. Before the GIS, I think we knew that these three components are very key in our support to partners. But I think for me, I didn't really think as like inseparable. And in a way that the GIS shared how like trust enabled the flexible funding to work because our partners feel safe to be honest, to talk to us, to tell about what they really need and prioritize. And then the flexible funding reinforces the trust because it demonstrates like we here at GFC generally respect their expertise, and then the non-financial support components lands well because it also like offer with that trusting relationship when partners could share with us what do they want to improve. And I think I also want to mention that there was like one finding in GIS that showed that 100% of the partners research in the GIS say that they feel trusted, supported, and respected by us, which is incredible. But it's also another part that I think like it means like we here at GFC like carry that enormous responsibility. This means our partners are willing to take risks. They're honest about what they're learning and how they invest their energy based on the relationship with us here at GFC. I think it's illuminating and like very motivating for us to continue to do the good work.
Yeah, thanks, Tia. So that's also, I mean, I think I I was also, and I'm still thinking about, that kind of interaction between, the flexible long-term funding and the tailored kind of accompaniment that we do, and how exactly those work together, kind of synergistically to, produce these effects. I think that's a fascinating thing to learn even more about, and maybe we can touch on that in a bit. But Lilli, let me go to you. You've been involved in a lot of studies of various types. And so curious about what you think is, what's the most important kind of message, for GFC and also the sector kind of emerging, from the findings.
Hi, thanks. Yeah, I think I'm going to almost reiterate some of what Tyas has said in terms of kind of what the standout component was for me and from my perspective. I mean, to kind of say it simply, I think the findings from the GIS really showed that how people feel in the relationship, in this case, a kind of donor partner relationship, really matters for what then can and is done by organizations and kind of the groundedness and meaningfulness of what's achieved through that relationship. So it is reiterating what Tia said, but it was very striking to hear across the board, and the global impact study findings and the full report really emphasize that the way that financial and non-financial support is delivered really matters for the types of impact that organizations can have and are supported to go on to have. So trust, establishing a trusting relationship and having that as the fundamental component from the beginning was very clear and came through very strongly from all of the organizations that we interacted with. I remember one grant partner, and it was a very striking conversation, but one to saying just having somebody to sit down with that they could share issues with, even where it was clear that there wasn't direct funding on the table, meant everything. And without going into the details of that organization, they were working in extremely challenging circumstances and often, as they said, kind of fighting for survival. And that ability to kind of, connect in a very human way really was motivating. It helped them to keep going in the difficult times. And it was that kind of experience was validated by other partner organizations who said, this kind of connection, this human connection, this trust really ignited motivation for their work. So I guess in terms of kind of thinking about the sector, the GIS is very clear that trust component is very important, but I guess it kind of raises a challenge, in a sector where we're focused on what's achieved and what's done, and always being able to demonstrate that, for us to kind of go away and reflect on how we understand what comes before what gets done, and how that is at the root of kind of all of it really, and it matters for individuals that are working with organizations. It matters for the individuals that are supported through those organizations. So that's my key reflection.
Yeah, thanks, Lilli. That really resonates as someone in a position of leadership within organizations for quite some time. That just being in community with others, whether it's just pure commiseration about something that's happening in the world that's a real challenge, or working through different challenges within organizations, knowing that others are dealing with the exact same thing in different part of the world, maybe working on something dramatically different in terms of theme or approach, but these commonalities exist among organizations of all shapes and sizes all over the world. And that raises questions for me a little bit about, okay, how do you really define trust? It's something that you feel, and you see signs of that when you can safely share challenges, and that someone can share challenges back, without those expectations that, oh, is this going to hurt my prospects of funding or something like that. You kind of know when you're in it, but I'm also kind of interested in learning more about what exactly the components of that are and how it's achieved, because it is rigorous and difficult and must be mutual. So, Hariom, let's go to you. So, as a researcher in the study, and also as a part of an organization that has a relationship with GFC, part of our aspiration here was to make this experience, a good learning experience for everybody involved. Not just say, hey, hand over your information so GFC can learn a few things, and thank you very much. So tell us a little bit more about the biggest learnings you've gained from participating in this study.
Thank you, John. And participating in the study was an immense learning experience for all the researchers who were trained. For me individually, there were three key learnings from my involvement in the study. First was about my learning on participatory action research. So as a researcher, I got insights into how to involve various stakeholders during the design and implementation of the study, how to ensure adequate and purposeful participation of everyone involved in the study. And the common thing I could see was that upholding the principles of participation during each stage of the study really helps. So, as someone from the sector and someone into research, we read these principles in theory, but it was good to see them in practice. I remember on one of our evenings during the training, I shared with Selina that, just being a part of the training and observing how discussions are being facilitated is in itself a masterclass into participatory research. So, a wonderful key takeaway from me from the whole experience was this. Second was my learnings on play-based research and creative research. So, understanding those tools, understanding how to collect data, both quantitative and qualitative data. One thing I observed about the tools was that it helped us capture data that the traditional tools like interviews, discussions, they don't help us capture, and they also help us overcome dynamics, power dynamics during these discussions, because there's it brings that individuality of each person and their own individual thoughts and experiences on the table, instead of a few people maybe dominating a discussion. So it was good and a learning for me. My last learning was on trust based philanthropy and flexible funding. So, like, even as a co-researcher and GFC partner, these concepts were new to me. It was new. They were new to our organization, but throughout our association with GFC and by speaking and listening to various GFC partners, even I learned that these things work. They help GFC partners. Selina has obviously covered all of it in a presentation, but they help us address the needs of our communities and the people we serve. So these were my three key takeaways.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. I really appreciate that. And I think that kind of illuminates the one of the fundamental differences between this study and different kind of feedback surveys that we've launched in the past. Every year we have an annual partner survey, and we're in the middle of our third survey, grantee perception report with Center for Effective Philanthropy. And in all of those cases, it's somebody within an organization who is responding to that survey in a structured way. And what you've just described is a much more broad set of perspectives that we're able to hear from. And so, on the one hand, the findings of the global impact study, you could see it as kind of oddly disappointing in a way because they're so consistent with what we've been hearing in our previous efforts. But knowing that it's coming from a dramatically different approach in a much more participatory way, it just sort of reaffirms, what we've been hearing all along, but and enhances it in a lot of ways. So we really appreciate that. So I see we have a number of questions popping up, and I'm going to just start with one for Tyas because I think it's a key thing that many that lacks in a lot of evaluation processes, and that is, so given the findings, I know we've done pretty robust reflection and sense-making processes internally and with our partners. So. How have those gone, and how can you talk a little bit about how GFC is taking these findings to kind of change its own practices?
Yeah, thank you, John. Yeah, that's like very important step, right? Like, as in, like, know what after GFC like gets the global impact study and then understand like the impact. And as you shared, like in some ways, it's also like it affirms what are like the gaps are. In addition to like how the GIS like validates our assumptions about trust-based philanthropy and get all of the evidence, but we also got to know the things that we actually need to improve on. So at GFC, we've been we conducted a series of internal reflection sessions to really deeply engage with what partners told us in the GIS. And these were part of the, like efforts of integrating the learnings and feedback from our partners from the GIS into refining and improving our practice. So it's been like very like a phase of self-reflection and integration here at GFC after getting the results. So we want to move from what did we learn to like, okay, then now what should we strengthen and what are the things we need to do differently? Because it was really clear like from the GIS that even though like our trust-based approach is working, we discover gaps between our intention and then partners' actual experiences. And all of these critiques are invaluable to us. And we realize like we need greater clarity and consistency internally to ensure that every partner receives comparable quality of support and then know what they can access.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Tyas. That's and I think part of our goal in doing this webinar and all of the other activities is also going to be to share these findings back and what we're learning with not just our partners, but the sector to kind of, inform things. And so we're hoping that, others, those of you on this webinar and folks who might see it afterward and engage with us will also, learn together from this. And then there's always this question about, okay, so you're still asking people within organizations that are very interested in the relationship with you to talk about you as a, a funder. So that introduces inevitably these questions around bias. And how do we know that, we're not just hearing what, folks think we want to hear. And so maybe Lilli, I know that's something that you've in the design and how we structured the study. It's something that was we're very conscious of. So can I ask you to kind of talk about how we attempted to address that?
Yeah, of course. Just to say, there's obviously lots on the methodology and the limitations of the study as well, and kind of considerations around how we manage bias in the report. So I won't be able to go into everything here. But as John said, thinking about kind of potential bias was key in how we set up the study from the start. So in kind of, how many partners we sought to speak to, how we sought to speak to partners, and the different methods that we used. So underpinning kind of everything today was a very robust methodological framework, sampling strategy and approach. With a view to kind of minimizing bias and being conscious, as John said, that, in a kind of funded relationship, there can still, even where we were trying to, level things, there can be kind of inherent power imbalances and people feeling they need to say the right thing. I guess kind of in short, having the peer participatory approach was an attempt to level that relationship. So people speaking with peers, maybe less kind of pressure of feeling the need to say the certain things. We also sampled across 4 different countries for deep dives. So speaking to multiple partners within one geographical context. And we complemented that kind of whole peer component with research undertaken by the Ecarus team members, so kind of us being the independent researchers, not kind of in that funder relationship in the same way. And I guess I don't think you can kind of eliminate the risk of bias completely in any research project. And so in the report, we're also balanced about kind of, how frequently we saw a certain finding. We deliberately kind of asked around areas for improvement and any less positive experiences of the relationship. And that was a key kind of component of our own kind of Ecarus team discussions, as well as the training with our co-researchers and really understanding what the whole purpose of this study was about, is to kind of improve the model, and yeah, making clear kind of that there's no direct funding linked to it and all of those things. But yes, I guess kind of just on the issue of bias, and it's already been touched upon, but a lot of the kind of key things were also very consistently reported across 49 partners. And so I guess that kind of goes some way to say, you know, that the experience was, yeah, kind of consistently as it is reported across many partners, but we also point to where it was not, the trusting relationship was not experienced in the same way, or kind of in a more critical way. I hope that goes some way to answer the question.
I hope so too. It answers it for me, but I think this is a question that will continue to arise in response to an effort like this. But I think that kind of radical openness and the sort of the widely different sort of geographies and populations involved in getting such consistent findings across the world when through a number of different kinds of interactions, I think helps. But of course, yeah, any study of any type is going to have its challenges. But Hariom, I think this is I'd love to hear maybe on relating to this. That you talked about sort of training and the activity in the participatory methods, and I think there's one question that's bubbled up about, okay, what about young people with disabilities? What about kind of other identities that intersect, and marginalized identities that kind of intersect? So I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit more in like what some of the activities you engaged in were like, to give folks a feel for just how much effort we put into that inclusion piece and making sure, all kinds of different people could participate in a meaningful way.
Thank you. Thank you, John. And this was a topic which was discussed a lot during the trainings, like how do we ensure that, most voices are captured, and, we're collecting reliable, genuine data involving different people, especially involving children and young people. So I think few things that most researchers did when they visited organizations was like spending a day with the organization and in the community, not as a researcher but as a person. So just speaking to people there, getting to know them as people and not as subjects. So getting to know them, getting to know the communities with no agenda, then speaking to partners and getting their thoughts on, who should we speak to, um, what are the different kinds of stakeholders you work with, what are the different kinds of people you serve, what are the understanding the intersectionalities there as well. Maybe then trying to speak to, I want to say everyone, but trying to speak to most people there. So like speaking to the staff members there, speaking to the community members there, the youth leaders, the community leaders, just trying to involve everyone, trying to speak to everyone, getting their thoughts, and then using different tools. So obviously interviews and discussions are one ways, but maybe engaging them in some art-based activity, or maybe engaging them in some sort of movement activity, or maybe just letting them express as they want to, instead of us going with a set of questions that and just knowing the answers to those questions. So like just doing different things, speaking to different people, not keeping a one size fits all approach. I think these were some of the things And obviously the Ecorist team, they came with like abundance of tools that we could pick and choose from, and we were given so much of freedom to sort of like collect data from and go and spend a few days. So yeah, these were some of the things that we did.
Yeah, thanks, Hariom. I think that that really helps because if you say peer participatory action research, you know, okay, what does that feel like? Yeah, and I think your experience, I think, can brings that to life a bit. And you know, it's also like extremely contextually aware because it doesn't look one way everywhere. It's not one tool. It's okay in this situation with these people who were keen to engage in a very inclusive way. This approach, this tool, this type of conversation seems best fit based on where I'm sitting right now in the world, you know, with this community. And I think that's, you know, a really important thing to understand, that inherent difference, that these findings sort of bubbled up from this huge variety of these activities all over the world, which I think, you know, also gets at that bias issue as well, because they're very consistent, you know, everywhere. So I'm a little bit conscious of time, and I'm seeing a lot of really interesting questions that I would love to be able to address in their entirety, but we oh yeah, we can do a follow up. But I think maybe to cap it off, what if we talk a little bit about um, how, yeah, the like, as much as Global Fund for Children tries not to be that kind of funder, and we are actively conscious of the power imbalances that exist. Can we? I'd love to hear each of your quick perspectives as a cat. Like, how does this study and the way we conducted this study, um, how has it tried to address those power imbalances and control for those and demonstrate our aspiration to disrupt them? So I'm going to throw it out to the three of you to see if there's anything that strikes you about that, you know, inherent problem in the donor kind of grantee relationship, and how this study might work to kind of disrupt it, either in the conduct or the findings.
Can I jump in? Maybe just to
Yeah.
say, in the kind of conduct, I guess the fact that you've asked the question, and actually quite a lot of partners were kind of quite surprised, well, certainly in the interviews that I was part of saying, oh, they want to know, and they want to hear from us. And particularly when we would ask for kind of areas for improvement, there was kind of some genuine appreciation that this study happened, and that it, I guess, happened in the way that it did. So, you know, involving a lot of partner perspectives and voices, and centering those, and centering partners in the process. So hopefully, I mean, that's kind of on the process of the study itself, and the fact that it happened. Hopefully, it demonstrates that there's that curiosity and interest to learn, yeah, and to take that forward.
Okay, so we get some credit for even asking the question. Hariom, Tyas, any perspective?
Similar to what Lilli said, is just that asking those questions, involving everyone, wanting to learn from partners, because in our context, donors don't really do that. So the study itself and how it's designed, they were like intentional intentions to address those power imbalances, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, thanks. And Tyas, maybe you get the final word.
Yes, yes, definitely. I think like from GFC perspective, we've always been uncomfortable with, you know, like traditional evaluation approaches where we hire external consultants to assess like our partners' work, and then that kind of like dynamic in some way reinforces that very power imbalances. And with our approach, like we're trying to dismantle, reduce the power imbalances through our trust-based philanthropy. So when we design the GIS, like we, like kind of have that self-reflections, ask ourselves, like how can we make the research process, like reflect our values? How do we avoid or like lessen the extractive part of doing the whole research? So we move forward with the Corey's team with like there is like a component of like peer participatory action research to like ultimately try to address that power imbalances, to lessen that imbalance, and then shift the power to the partners selected, because all in all, they're the ones also we have that hold that expertise, understand about the communities better. So in a way that, and then there was like another part of, in addition to that peer participatory action research, throughout the whole process, we ensure that everything happens in participatory way. We could design the research process with all of us here at GFC, and then the extended group of GFC, and then partners, and then also like co-researchers bring in their perspective when, like experimenting with the research tools. And then there was like one part of the sense making and validation. So it's like everything is like the whole participatory, trying that intention to lessen that power imbalances is embedded throughout the whole process. Yes.
Thanks, Tyas.
That's it.
Beautiful. And so we're going to close 1 minute after the hour. But thanks so much, everyone, for joining and taking an interest in this. We will make the recording available. Look for other opportunities to engage around this in coming weeks and months. And I just see in the chat that we'll be making an effort to answer the questions we couldn't get to by email, so we can keep the dialogue going. Appreciate your feedback, appreciate the learning that we're getting from these conversations, and we'll see you next time. And thanks, Lilli and Selina and Hariom and Tyas. Appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.